So this is a Model 7400 Remington, chambered in 243. This was a unfortunate flood victim, and somebody had taken it apart completely, and so it just sat in a box. It didn't, it didn't fare very well. We got a substantial split in the fore stock here. I'm going to try and glue this together and make a decent repair, and possibly it'll suffice until we can find a takeoff of another one. And the buttstock is kind of just a little grody. It is a walnut stock, and it has like this this pucker right here. It almost looks like there's a nail trying to poke its way out, but there's not. And it's probably just obviously due to water damage. We got a little split right here, but I think it'll be okay. I'll make a few repairs, strip the wood down, put some new finish on it, or glue it and then put some new finish on it. The magazine, maybe we're gonna do the best we can with it. Luckily, you can still find these magazines. They're a multi-caliber magazine. It says right here on the side it'll fit 308 Winchester, 6mm Remington, and 243 Winchester. So you can find these, but I will try my best to get this cleaned up. And we'll just have to see how it goes from there. Trigger group looks good. Everything is intact. The hammer and the safety, everything functions as it should. Probably just going to carefully clean this up. Not going to really disassemble any of this stuff. I've taken these apart before, and they're not exactly fun to reassemble. And there's nothing wrong with this. Just have to make sure that this lever here doesn't pop off, because it will come off. And don't want to lose any springs, so we need to be careful with this. One thing I was surprised about was how small the scope rings were with the factory Leupold that came with it. And you can even see engraved down here on the bottom of this scope mount, it says 7400. And I just thought it was kind of interesting how the factory Leupold scope mount, and the diameter of the actual scope was just really tiny, almost like a rimfire scope. But I'm no gun historian or anything like that, so that's probably perfectly natural for them to do that. The two-piece buttstock cover plate, whatever you want to call that, it's in good shape. It's got some peeling on it, but we'll be able to polish that out, get it nice and cleaned up. Everything is still intact. The logo looks nice and crisp. The barrel and receiver, the plastic dust cover is still intact. Everything looks pretty good in there. The engraving is nice and clean. It doesn't have any rust that is so bad that it has it pitted. We are missing the V-sight for the front, but I think I may have one laying around here somewhere. Front sight still intact. Everything looks good. I will run the bore scope down the barrel just to see what it looks like on the inside. There was a little plastic spacer, and I've never had one of these in the shop, so I think it broke. And so it's supposed to go like this in the end of the fore stock, and it's like a spacer, but this one broke, so I'm going to try and 3D print one on my 3D printer try and pull that off, because it is completely missing. But all the parts are here. Everything is where it is here. I did a little mock assembly and made sure that everything had a place, and it does. So this is a complete rifle. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start taking this barrel and receiver apart and get the bolt out, so that we can get all the rust off of it, get it cleaned up, and get it ready for some more bluing, and go from there. So it's going to be a buttload of time lapse. So hope y'all are ready for that. Okay, so I just loosened the barrel nut off the receiver here, and it was kind of spooky, just because, you know, I'm sure, I know they make a dedicated tool to remove this barrel nut, but I used a good quality 3/4 inch open end wrench, and was sure to clamp this down in my vise in such a way that I didn't crush the receiver and didn't bend up these arms for the action here. I normally wouldn't pull this off, but it's pretty gross on the inside, so it really needs to be torn all the way down and cleaned up and blued. So you just got to be really careful that you don't screw anything up. That's the most nerve-wracking part of disassembling some of these guns is trying to clamp them in your vise in such a way that you don't destroy anything, because this particular nut was on there pretty tightly, and I soaked it with some penetrating oil to try and get it to, you know, ease up. And after I let it soak for a while and got a good grip in my vise without crushing anything, I was able to get it broke free. So I'm sure this is, and it does have red Loctite on it. So just be sure, if you're going to do this, be very, very careful. Oh yeah, and I still need to drive the pin out. I got carried away and forgot. I need to drive this pin out so that I can take the charging handle off of the bolt here. So I'll go ahead and do that and finish disassembling this little rifle. Alright, I know you're probably not going to be able to see this really good, but I'm going to run this bore camera, and it has really a really bad connection. I need to get another plug for my phone. These only work on Android phones. This particular one does. And I just looked down the barrel with my naked eye and run a brush down at a time or two. I just wanted to make sure before I went through a whole lot of work on this barrel that there wasn't anything major going on with it. So yeah, I'm just going to go down through here and just kind of look at all the sides and work my way down, look all around. Right now, the orientation of the bore scope is such that it has like a dental mirror on it, on the end of it, and it's looking perpendicular to the direction of the bore. And it has a little light on it, and you can adjust the intensity of the light. But this thing was fairly inexpensive on Amazon, and I have used this so many times, not just on gun barrels, but all sorts of things. You know, doing DIY stuff around the house, locating wires in the house, stuff like that. So they're really handy to have. But I'm just going to go down through here and check this barrel out. Everything looks pretty good so far. Okay, so now I've got the gun parts and the Evapor Rust. That's probably one of my favorite off-the-shelf rust removers to use. It's reusable. You can recollect the chemical and store it and use it multiple times. It's really safe to use. It's not like it's going to burn your skin off or anything. I mean, I'm not saying you can just play in it with no gloves, but it's not an immediate hazard, and it's not going to destroy the metal on whatever you're trying to remove the rust from. So it's a little easier than the electrolysis or whatever, using the 12-volt battery and baking soda method. But yeah, this works really well. I'm gonna let this sit for a while, check on it, see how it's going, and then whenever I've got the rust broken down enough, we'll start cleaning these up and getting them ready to maybe put some bluing on them. Long process. For now, I believe what I'm going to do is start working on the wood on the stocks, because that's going to be pretty time consuming. So I'm going to go ahead and get the old finish scraped off of these, get it back down to some good wood, check my defects, and see if I can get the cracks glued up and get these refinished. So we'll work on that now. I made this goofy knife a while back, just playing around, out of an old saw blade, skill saw blade. You can see I left the tooth on there, and what I use this for is I'll scrape the finish off of there, and I'm not trying to drop it down or cut. I'm just lightly going across there and scraping the old finish off. And as bad as my sinuses are, I've sanded stocks down, I've removed the finish just about every which way you could think of, and this is probably the method I like the best as far as these oiled stocks go. It makes a nice smooth finish, and then you can come back and lightly sand to get the profile that you want. So I'm just gonna take my little knife there and just scrape all this old finish off, get down to good wood, and be really careful around this checkering and around this grip cap here. So this will probably take a little while, so we'll go ahead and go into time lapse. Okay, so I've been working on the furniture for the little rifle, and it's still in really good shape. The forestock has a pretty substantial crack going down the middle of it here. I took some CA glue and squeezed it the best I could, and just kind of pushed that crack together, and I'm already going to take some of my checkering tools and chase out some of the detail in the checkering, and hopefully that line will kind of disappear into all this, and I may take some dark stain and stain the checkered areas and kind of hide that crack a little better. I'm sure if we looked around we could probably find a takeoff of another gun, but this will do for now. There's another little crack that I need to glue back, and the parts are still soaking in the evapor rust. They'll be there for a while, and I'm just going to continue to work on the stock and try and get it ready for finish. I got sent out of town for work, and so best laid plans, you know. So this stuff has been sitting in here for a week, which isn't bad. Get all this old bluing off of it, all this old rust. Just gonna gently scrub this stuff and get all this rust and this old bluing off, and just continue on with the process, just gently using a brass bristle brush, because to me the brass isn't going to hurt it. And as I've said many times, I'm no expert gunsmith. I just enjoy doing this stuff, and I learn as I go, and with each project I learn a little more. I read books, old gunsmithing books, new gunsmithing books, and I just try as best I can to with what I have, and I enjoy the process. And it's not like this is a, you know, any kind of museum piece or anything, so I'm not going to do anything outside my capabilities, so I'm going to just keep on working on this. I've taken most of the small parts. The only thing left is the main the bolt and the action and the barrel. The rest of the parts are in here in the parts dryer. I rinsed them off thoroughly with water, blew with the air compressor, blew most of the water out. Now I'm gonna let them sit here in the parts dryer for a while and get them good and dry, and then take a look at them and probably see if we could take some really high grit sandpaper, like some 1000 or 1500 or something, and get some of those scratches and dings out of it. Whatever we can get out of it, and get a nice smooth profile before we start gluing them. And you can see that the evapor rust really does a really good job, and I highly recommend it. And pretty much got a mess here in the shop, but such is life. So I figured I would check in. I pulled the barrel out, and I've decided to do the barrel first while the small parts are drying, because I didn't want this to start rusting on me because it's very humid here. But I'm using Mark Lee's Express Brown #2, and I'm using a propane torch to heat the steel up to 150 degrees, and then use a cotton swab to swab it on. I'm fixing to do the 4th pass. I want this to be a really deep finish. Also, what I've seen people do is they'll actually go with Oxbow blue over the top of the brown, and that gets a really deep bluish black, because this seems, from what I've read, turns the steel faster. I haven't tried this method yet, so I'm not really sure, but I am pleased with the results so far, and how even and nicely the finish is coming out so far. So it's kind of a long, boring process. You heat up a section, work it in, move on to the next section, heat it up, work it in, and then you come back and then steel wool it. And so it's kind of tedious and kind of boring, so I'll spare you that and just come back whenever I get to the next step. Alright, so we kind of skipped ahead, and I've got this chassis assembled. Everything is functioning. I still have to work on the forestock and the buttstock, but this right here has been completed. I used the Mark Lee browning solution. It gave it a nice, warm, rich brown tone. Something a little different than the typical blue black. I think it looks really cool. I think it'll look really nice once it's together with the with that walnut stock. And one thing about it that I discovered was the magazine spring is broke. So probably just gonna need to get another mag. Not a big deal. I polished up and cleaned up the butt pad. Turned out pretty good. It's I just used some of this blue plastic polish, and whenever they did this, whenever they treated the stocks, they looked like they shellacked the whole thing, including the plastic on the buttstock and all, even the cap on the bottom here. So I'll have to bring that back to life, which that's not entirely too difficult to do. So when we come back, hopefully we'll be a little further along and get these stocks recheckered and get this crack cleaned up a little bit. But a lot of progress. Good job, y'all. Alright, so now I'm to the point. I've kind of really lost track of this video. It kind of ran off the rails. Apologize. I'm going to piece it together the best way I can. I'm to the point now where I didn't rechecker the checkering. All I did is chase the same checkering lines out, just to sharpen them up and clean some of the decades of grime and dirt and crap like that out from between them, and just kind of sharpen them up and just reconstitute the design. I did that on the fore stock and on the butt stock there. It seems like in the factory they went ahead and put oil over the grip cap here. I don't think I want to do that. I took and sanded it up to a high grit paper, and then I took some polish in my Dremel tool and a little buffing wheel, and I polished that back up. So I wanted to tape it off, and so now I'm going to use some Birchwood Casey's True Oil. I've had really good success with it over the years. I've done a lot of stocks using this stuff. I really like it. It's super simple to use. I would like to venture out and try some different products, but this has worked really well for me. And the way I do it, and it's probably, if I can open it, it's not, like I said, I'm not a professional in any reality. So I do this the way I know how and the way I've kind of seen it done. So if I can get the cap off, I used to use cheesecloth, and I still do, but I don't have any. And but for this, I'm just going to use a gloved hand with some clean gloves, and just massage it all into the wood. I'm gonna put some on my fingers and just start working it in. Trick is you just don't want to have any runs, and work it in as evenly as you can. This stuff, I'm seeing a lot of people use their bare hands. I mean, you can. I don't think there's any major harm that can come with it doing that. I don't like the way it feels on my hands, to be honest with you. With it. So, on to the next thing. Ooh. Ow. Cheap rubber gloves. Dang it. And while I'm waiting on the True Oil to cure, dry, so I can do some more coats, I've got my reverse engineered 4-stock spacer ring for the end cap. I got it opened up in Cura. I drew it in FreeCAD, and now I'm fixing to move over here and do a print, a 3D print of this spacer ring. So it says it's going to take about 11 minutes, so I'm going to put it in time lapse, and we're going to see how this turns out. I'll probably have to do a few more iterations, but here's the first go. Alright, it just finished printing. I'm not sure. It almost looks like my little rim there isn't thick enough. Pretty nice rim. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's thick enough. Yeah. Definitely doesn't seem thick enough. Kind of see it. I think it needs to be beefed up, so I'll tweak the design and compare it to the piece that was broken, and see how much I need to add, and just go from there. So I'm gonna work on the computer a little bit and see if I can't get this thing correct. Alright, so I've got a couple of solid coats on the furniture here, and got a few runs, not a big deal, and it's nice and dry, not tacky or anything. They've been sitting in here for about, I don't know, 24 to 26 hours, I guess. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this 600, it's 600, 400, and what the True Oil recommends is that you can actually use fine steel wool to buff this out and remove any imperfections. But what I'm going to do, and I've seen this done, I've done it a few times myself, is I'm going to actually wet sand the wood with some True Oil. And what that does is it creates like a slurry, and it fills in the pores a little better and just makes a really smooth, slick finish. So that's what I'm gonna start doing right now. And basically just put a little bit on my sandpaper and just gently start working it in, working on some of the runs that I have, and trying not to remove too much of my previous coats. So we're gonna just go into time lapse and do that right now. All right, I got this worked in with the sandpaper real nice. Got the runs out, the little tiny drips that I had coming out of the checkering, and I'm gonna let this cure for a good while, make sure it gets good and hard, probably over the next few days. I got a lot to do at work, so these are probably gonna be put on the back burner for another couple of days. So not a big deal. You want this stuff to be really good and hard before you start trying to buff it and burnish it. So that'll be the next step, is after these get nice and cured, I'm going to use some very fine steel wool and come back and burnish and buff the stocks. And that'll kind of remove a little bit of the sheen and any imperfections, and just give it a really nice, soft look and feel. It won't have that real plasticky feel that it has a lot of coats on it. You'll be able to really enjoy the wood. And but just so you know, I've probably got about 4 coats on there, and it seems to be enough for me. All the wood has the wood has drank in all the oil that it's going to. You can keep going and get a really slick finish where it feels like there's a lacquer on there, but I don't really do that unless somebody really requests that. But this is just the way I do it. I'm no professional, but I think they're gonna look good. All right. Okay, just got the little rifle put back together and finished. I'm going freehand with the camera right now, so you have to bear with me. I didn't get this crack completely perfect. It's not to my standards. It'd probably just be best to get another fore stock, but it is definitely functional, and it's just an appearance thing. But still, it does still look a little lighter brown bronze and on camera than in person. It is brown, don't get me wrong, but I do like the way it looks. It's I don't know, I guess it's not for everybody, but I feel like it turned out really nice. I'm really proud of this project. It does, again, need a new magazine, so but everything turned out really good. I'm happy with it. I can't wait to get a magazine for it and do some test fires with it and see how that goes, and I'll post that up. But yeah, so it's been a pretty fun little project, and can't wait to do another one just like it, because I do like a challenge. And come on, focus. Anyway, y'all get the idea. My camera work sucks. There you go. All right, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about it, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or any helpful tips or tricks, I'd like to hear from you. All right, thank you to make it out.